weather will reach temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
Imam Hussein Media Group is a virtual university that works on a global scale to spread the true message of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt's peace and blessings be upon them. Imam Hussein TV was established 10 years ago in the city of Isfahan, Iran. We work to cover all aspects of religion, Islamic jurisprudence, politics, philosophy, and many more, and aim to bring the public's attention to the righteous Islamic sect, Shia Islam. Our ultimate goal as a media group is to convey the interpretations of the Holy Quran, as well as the traditions and knowledge of the Holy Prophet and his progeny, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon them. Our objectives are to protect and safeguard the Shia youth from the destructive impact of immoral ideologies, standing up against injustice by documenting the oppression of Shia across the globe, as well as encouraging peace and unity amongst the Muslims. To reach our aims and serve the Muslim Ummah, we require a budget that would cover all the expenses for our productions, allowing us to work on different projects. Imam Hussein Media Group is a crowd-funded project. We have no sales nor do we charge for our services. We solely rely on monthly payments, financial contributions, donations, religious alms, and generous gifts. The expenses of each production varies depending on the type of project and the style of filming. There are many elements to a production that requires time and capital. The producer must analyze the costs of the venue hire, equipment, transport, feature fees, set design, staff support, and further additional costs. The Holy Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, narrated, "The best of people is he from whom people benefit." It is up to you to help the Muslim Ummah come together and help guide the youth in remaining on the correct path of Islam. To take part in this global conquest and to spread the message of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, please visit www.imamhussein3.tv or give us a call on +44 0203 515 0199. You can also contact us via WhatsApp, Telegram, SMS, or even email us on donate@imamhussein.tv. Let's work together hand in hand to elevate the faith of our Shia youth today.
When a person cries for Imam al-Hussein, this tear that comes out of the eye is an expression of the love and the mahabba and the mawadda for Imam al-Hussein, which is in the heart. Therefore, the tear is an expression of this firmly deep-rooted love that lies in the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the emotion of love so powerful in that if it is manifested through a tear, this tear has the potential to cause revolutions that will cause earthquakes and bring the thrones of the tyrants crashing down to ash and dust.
Whilst this winter many of you will be enjoying the festive season, Afghanistan is going through a crisis. Every winter the weather will reach temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a live show. We do taking all your questions, so if you have any question in regards to any topic whatsoever, we don't need to know your name or where you're asking from. Send in your questions via the WhatsApp, the email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv. Give us a call here live in the studio 0203 515 0199. If you're watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube, put your question in the comment section. Inshallah, the technical team will be able to forward your questions to me, and inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your questions. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Ma'as. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah, fine.
MashaAllah. Sheikhna, according to his eminence, the Grand Ayatollah, Sheikh Ishaq al-Fiyadh, what is the ruling when I perform wudu and I wash my arms 3 times, in the left or the right arm? Because it is mustahab to do it twice, wajib to do it once. I've done it 3 times. What do I do in this situation?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. The Sheikh mentions that the one who washes his arms 3 times in the wudu, his wudu would be void and batil, and this person needs to repeat the salah again if he prayed with this wudu. So the one needs to repeat the salah because they have made 3 washes on their left or right arm, which is not allowed.
Sheikh, if one knows he's traveling and must shorten his salah but performs it inadvertently in full, would his salah be valid?
Not, of course. His salah is void and batil. The one must pray, if he's a traveler or musafir, the 4 rak'ah and 2 rak'ah. So the one should pray Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr and Isha 2 rak'ah in travel. When you are musafir, you must, this is wajib. You can't pray 4 rak'ah, otherwise you have to repeat the salah again.
I see. Sheikh, a question in from the WhatsApp. Sperm was taken from a husband to be implanted in a wife's womb. Afterwards, the husband died. The sperm was implanted in the womb of his widow. A male baby was born to the widow. What is the ruling on the born child and inheritance? This is questions from the WhatsApp. So, I think whether it was through artificial insemination or whether it was through the traditional way, a child is born and the father has passed away before the child was born. What is the ruling in regards to inheritance? Would the baby be, because the baby is obviously not balugh, is it entitled to inheritance at that young age, or do you have to wait for it to grow and then maybe he can have his inheritance and so forth?
Was there intercourse with the wife in terms of the birth?
Sorry, say again?
Was there intercourse with the wife before the death?
Yes and no, because it was done artificially. But that doesn't really matter. It was the husband and wife and it's their child. The father's passed away.
Of course, the child belongs to the parents.
Yes.
You know, it's a halal child. على كل حال. There's no issue with it.
Fantastic. Sheikhna, more questions coming in from the WhatsApp. Are we as Muslims, Shia, responsible to tell others about the upcoming lunar or solar eclipse so people recite their Salat al-Ayat?
When somebody receives the news that there's a lunar eclipse, khusuf or kusuf, as mentioned in Arabic, then it becomes wajib for the one to perform the salah in that time. And of course, there are believers who would spread this news around, so others would be have the knowledge about the time and the day of the eclipse.
Sheikh, a question from the YouTube. Is khums wajib upon me if I don't own basic necessities such as a house, a car, etc.?
If you have excess and surplus at the end of the year, even if it's just a small amount of money, and you haven't used that amount during the year, you still have to pay the khums on it. It could be only, let's say, £2 out of £10. It could be a very small amount. It doesn't matter. This has to be paid as khums, as wajib basically. It doesn't matter if you live in a rented property or even rented furniture or assets, you still have to pay the khums. This is a surplus, unused money during the year, so you have to pay khums anyhow.
Sheikhna, a question from YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Is there an error in ayah 5 to 7 in Surah Tariq? I think we're going to have to answer that one next week so that we can actually look at the ayah and the tafsir from them and what the mufassirin say in regards to that. Inshallah, join us on Wednesday. We will answer that question for you. Another question from YouTube. Can you do a fire when you are not sure if the person you are with is your nasib? There is khira. Can you do a khira when you are not sure if the person you are with is your nasib? I guess not nasib, nasib.
The khira is there when there is hesitation. You're unsure about something. You take the khira. You want to travel. Let's say with the situation of COVID, you're not sure if the path is safe and so forth. You take khira. You want to get married to somebody. You're not sure if things. You've done all your research and investigations, but still unsure. Then you take the khira.
Ahsant. Shaykh, a question. I think this one's from the WhatsApp. I belong from a Sunni family and I am Shia, alhamdulillah. So there is a problem that I'm getting married into a Sunni family. So I wanted a Shia alim to recite my nikah. But they refused it. So can I bring a Sunni alim to recite my nikah? Please reply to me. Tell me when my... Okay. Please reply to me as soon as possible. So Shia brother here, his family Sunni, he's a revert. He's going to get married. He's going to get married into a Sunni family. They are refusing for him to have a Shia alim to come and recite the nikah. Is he allowed to have a nikah done by, let's say, scholars of other madhabs?
He needs to see a Shia alim with this regard.
Okay.
And to do the nikah in the Shia way.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Another question from YouTube, from Facebook, from the WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum. I have a question. I used a hairdryer which has bristles from boar hair. Now, boar hair, Sheikh, if you don't know, boar is a wild animal. It's a hog. It's from the pig family, but it's not what you see, the pink ones on the farm. It's like the black ones with the tusks and so forth. Boar hair. My hair was damp when I used it to dry it. Do I have to redo all the prayers because my hair would have been impure? So the brother or sister here is asking that. I used the hairdryer and there was some, as you know, there's attachments you can put on with bristles and so forth, with brushes. The brushes were from boar hair, okay? So for the animal's hair, it was boar. Now the hair was wet and they used it on their hair. Will that make your hair najis? And if so, do they have to repeat their salah or not?
Well, number one, we have to see this boar, this animal, is he like from the family of the pig, which is najis, inheriting ayn najasa? We have to see this, number one. If yes, then are they certain 100% that this brush or whatever they used is from the boar hair, 100%? Then of course they have to avoid, and if there's a moisture cross-contamination, they have to wash and avoid this type of najasa.
Sheikh, now from the YouTube, what is the ruling when going on holiday and there is a busy market, etc.? It's allowed to go with your wife to such places. Okay, so someone's on holiday, they're going to the markets, it's quite busy there, hustle and bustle and so forth. Are they allowed to go with their wife to such places? Let's assume that the wife is in full hijab and is dressed correctly the Islamic way. Is she allowed to accompany her husband to go to the marketplace?
There's no objection to that. If there's no haram involved in that place, there's no issue with it. They can go and do shopping, even if it's in this, let's say, in holiday seasons like Christmas and New Year, for example. As long as they do not get involved in haram and somehow, there's no issue with it. And avoid looking at the haram scenes to lower the gaze from the haram and so forth.
Shaykhna, assalamu alaikum. During Salah, I might forget a word or two and realize after I finish, should I retake it?
There's no issue with it.
Ahsant. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna. In sujood, is sujood permissible when you have a bandage on the knee due to injury? Jazakallah khair. So this brother or sister is in regards that when you do sujood, 7 points have to touch the ground.
Yes.
We know the forehead, the palms, the two knees, and the two toes, the big toes of the feet have to touch the ground. If I have an injury on my knee, and I do actually have an injury on my knee, for those of you who know me personally, if they put a bandage around or so forth, or they've got maybe a sleeve or something, or a knee brace, does that invalidate the sujood? Because technically you're not really touching the ground fully, are you?
I mean, you try to do your best to reach all the parts of sujood on the ground. Otherwise, if you can't, then you do as much as you can. Your best.
Assalamu alaikum. Does a temporary wife inherit from her husband? What about the child from the temporary marriage? That's from the WhatsApp. So if an individual has done temporary marriage, mut'ah marriage with someone, passes away, does that wife, does she inherit from him? And if she has a child, is the child eligible for inheritance as well?
From what I know, that there's no inheritance with regard to the temporary marriage. Yeah.
Ahsant. Shaykhna, so many questions coming in. Question from the YouTube. If a married woman commits adultery with a man, what would be the ruling about them? So we have a woman who, adultery by the way, is when a woman is within a halal marriage and so forth and goes outside of that. Male or female that goes outside and performs zina with someone else, that is known as adultery. If a female is to do so, what is the Islamic ruling about that?
They have to repent to Allah Azza wa Jal and do istighfar and do ghusl al-tawbah, the wash of tawbah, and avoid doing such thing again.
Interesting question I want to add to that, Sheikh, for myself is that a lot of people know that of the ruling where the adulteress is stoned and so forth. Can we actually implement that in today's day and age or not?
Not at all. With the situation today, no.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna. When you perform ghusl, can you pray after it, or do you have to do wudu as well after the ghusl? That's from the WhatsApp.
If the ghusl is wajib, like janaba, there's no wudu after it at all. So it depends which ghusl is it.
Shaykhna, is it permissible to be a party to temporary marriage with a woman who is known for adultery if no other woman is available and the person is in desperate need of marriage? So here, someone wants to, or is considering doing a temporary marriage with someone who, let's say, has a very bad reputation in terms of marriage or in terms of zinna and so forth. Such people of that character, are we allowed to do temporary marriage with people like that at all?
It's severely discouraged and karaha shadida, if not, some would say haram. But in overall, the one should avoid such people because there are diseases, there are ala kulli hal, bad reputations. So one should avoid it.
I see. Ahsant. Shaykhna, question from YouTube, and that is, what is the ruling for Muslim girls who post their pictures online and they know that they look attractive but they are wearing full hijab, but makeup, etc., and things like that?
Anything that would cause attraction and would arouse the lust of the opposite gender is forbidden. It's not allowed. They have to see themselves.
I see. Excellent. Another one from YouTube. Trying to find it. Assalamu alaikum. If someone married, the husband called the wife like divorcing her over the phone, is she still married or divorced? Thank you. Okay, so someone tried to divorce their wife over the phone. I'm assuming there was no witnesses. and so forth. Is such a divorce acknowledged and active? Is it valid?
There are conditions with this regard for the divorce, at least in the Shia thought, that you have to have two witnesses who are adil and just. And she is divorced in her purity, where there's no intercourse has been taking place in that period of time, and other conditions. So they have to make sure that they meet the conditions before they actually achieve the divorce issue. Otherwise, it's not a divorce.
Sheikhna, is it zina if two unmarried people kiss each other? Now we're assuming these are two opposite genders and not the same gender, but two unmarried people, if they kiss each other, is this considered zina?
We have something in narrations about that the zina of the eyes is by looking at the opposite gender with lust, with temptation. There's something, but it wouldn't reach that level of zina in which there's penetration and so forth. So that is also a sin, haram act.
Ahsan. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Salam.
What is the ruling when an injury bleeds during prayer, even if it is bandaged? Now I'm assuming this brother or sister is asking that if you have a wound and you clean the wound and you put a bandage over the top, and during the prayer, let's say it starts to leak and it continues to, are you supposed to stop your prayer, clean up the wound or whatever, begin again, or can you continue? I mean, Sharia law states we are allowed to pray with, I think it's the amount of a thumbprint or smaller of blood on your, and as does blood, not urine or other najasa, just blood on your clothing. If it's less than the thumbprint, you may continue the prayer and it's okay, it's not a problem. But if you have a wound and it's leaking, what does one do in that situation, Sheikhna?
I mean, if this type of wound is a non-stop wound, in other words, there's a continuous bleeding, then the one should pray with this state. There's no choice. There's a deep wound. In this situation, the one should pray in this situation. Because even if he stops the pray and changes the bandage, it could continue again and again. So he just has to continue with the prayer as is.
Interesting question here. And if anyone is in such a situation, we pray for them. If one's father is being abusive to his wife, can the son stop the father forcefully? I'm assuming it's physical abuse, as in fighting and harm using fists and kicks and so forth. Can the son get involved to try and protect the mother for whatever reason that's been happening in their household?
I mean, the one should try his best.
YouTube.
His best to advise the father, speak to him about the issue separately, and try to involve others who can influence on the father. For example, the uncles, the aunties, and so forth. They might be able to help. The elderly in the family, try to help and avoid this kind of violence. Otherwise, they have to seek experts in this field.
Ahsant. Quick one from the WhatsApp. Is it permissible to use sex toys in its various types for sexual pleasure? No, you cannot. Is that correct, Sheikhna?
Indeed.
Fantastic. Sheikhna, we're going to go to the Islamic, the Shia Plus video, inshallah. Let's see what our youth are getting up to today and how we can help with their issue, inshallah.
Wait, can I touch the toilet door handle while my hands are wet? Am I going to become najis?
There's young Imam Hussein TV's own Yasser there. Sheikhna, a very, very common issue. I guess all of us go through that in our day and age, in our day-to-day lives. We have wet hands, we're in a workplace, we use public toilets, whether we're out in public, on the subway, on the bus or whatever, and we washed our hands are wet from a restaurant or so forth. Are we allowed to open doors, touch surfaces, assuming they are tahir and they're not going to make our hands najis? Or is it the opposite? We should try and keep our hands away from these surfaces and try and keep it as tahir as possible.
The basic rule is that everything is pure and tahir unless you're certain that it is najis and impure. So in this case, if the brother knows that this handle is najis, he saw the najas, he saw the impurity on it, then of course he needs to avoid it. And rub his hand and dry it and then open the door. Otherwise it's tahir and pure, there's no issue with it.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, if you hear this news about an upcoming lunar or solar eclipse, are you responsible to recite Salatul Ayat?
If you hear about it, yes, it becomes wajib. So you have to pray within the time given. Inside that time, you have to pray the Salatul Ayat.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Sometimes the eclipse is not visible in your region or area, or you may not see it because you are at work, etc. Again, you hear it's happening. What's your responsibility on Salatul Ayat?
I mean, if you see it and you know about it and the date and the timings, then you have to pray wajib. Otherwise, some ulama would say that if it's a full eclipse, then you have to do the qada. If it's partial, there's no qada. If you didn't know about it, you knew afterwards. So it depends really.
Ahsant. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Ya Ali, very nice greeting. I've travelled for the whole day and my salah is qasr, and I am now returning home before Maghrib, and I get to the city, I reside by Maghrib time, but still not got to my house yet. Is my Maghrib qasr? So this person is on their way back. Maghrib has come. They're on their way back to their home. Maghrib has arrived. They still haven't reached their home yet. Do they pray their Maghrib qasr or not?
If they're enough away from the home, the borders of the city,
YouTube,
then of course they still pray Maghrib on their way. But if they're close to the border of the city, where they can see the buildings and they're reaching their hometown, then of course they pray Kamil and the full. Otherwise they have to pray Qasr on their way back as well.
I see. Ahsant. Sheikhna, if a Muslim knows that contracted AIDS, it is permissible for him to engage in sexual relations with his wife. Is it obligatory for him to inform his wife about it? Okay, so here the individual, the husband, has AIDS, which is was considered a cancer, but it is a sexually transmitted disease. Is he allowed to still have, or they'll consider non-protective sexual intercourse with his wife without informing her that I have this illness and it can be transmitted through having marital relations?
Well, the problem is this is one of the harmful illnesses in which, with the transmission, it could cause the other side also to become ill, and it could be a serious illness as well. So they have to inform them that we are in this situation.
Sheikh, a nice easy question for you. Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, is chess haram, and if it is, why?
Definitely the chess is haram because we have the infallibles alayhim salam statement with this regard that it is forbidden, and the majority of the ulama have made it forbidden playing with chess because it's part of the gambling games.
Ahsant. Sheikh, I think this is one from WhatsApp. When you are doing salah and forget how many rakats you've done, is the salah invalid and have to retake it or not? Sheikh, with this, the what we say gunjais in our language, but like the freedom that you have is with the third and fourth rak'ah.
Yes.
That if you are on a rak'ah and you're not sure whether it's your third or fourth, you may assume it is your fourth and finish, and then pray an extra rakat ihtiyat. However, with Fajr and Maghrib, it's not the case, is it?
Exactly, the salah would be batil. If we are in doubt of the first and second rak'ah of 4 rak'ah salah, let's say Dhuhr, Asr and Isha, or Maghrib and Subh, you have to repeat the salah again in this situation.
So if it's first or second rak'ah of any prayer,
yes,
you start from the beginning.
Exactly.
If it's third and fourth,
there's ahkam with regard to the fourth and fifth and so forth.
Excellent. Sheikh, from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum. If someone's husband doesn't like to spend money on his wife secretly gives money to poor people, etc., is this permissible because the wife feels bad for the poor?
In overall, the wajib on the husband is to spend on his wife, the nafaqah, wajib al-nafaqah, to feed her, to clothe her, to offer accommodation and so forth, something that suits this lady. So, I mean, they have to see.
So I guess what the brother here was trying to say was that my wife has her own money but she likes to give it to the poor because she feels sorry for them and so forth. So am I still obliged?
It's her money على كل حال.
She
To
can do as
spend
she
it,
pleases.
to save it, to give it to the poor. It's her
That's
money.
fine. Sheikhna, from YouTube, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
Can one pray on the fingers in Salah in place of a stone?
The very end result of not finding anything to pray on is to pray on the back of your hands and not on fingers. We don't have such a thing to pray on the fingers. Back of your hands. That's the very last resort.
Okay, excellent. Sheikhna, when is it permissible to do a sex change operation from male to female or vice versa? Sheikhna, this is very, very common, and we've seen a lot from the LGBT community who have been advocating for such operations, especially with people who you could argue who are not mature enough to make such decisions. I've spoken to certain doctors who have told me that even they've had like psychological issues afterwards. Sad to say, this case has even been seen in our own communities as well. Very, very famous Muslim countries, arguably one of the most popular for people to go and have these operations and so forth. Islamically speaking, is it permissible, or is this something that, you know, is totally forbidden, and that we have to search our own, you could say, path or psychological journey to understand how people feel like this and why they feel that they are in a different body or so forth, and that, you know, is it a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How does it work?
In overall, the ulama mentioned that it is not permissible for the one to change his
Gender.
على كل حال. It's not permissible. But what we have, and we had in some narration, is that they are actually على كل حال, they have sometimes two parts, and they want to choose to be either male or female.
Okay,
that's a different issue.
I see.
It's called khuntha in Arabic.
But that's when
they're half.
They're born
half
with
male,
both.
half female.
They're born with both female and male genitals.
Exactly.
Okay.
They have to make their choice to be. Do they incline to the female side or the male side? And there are signs for it. And narration mentions what are the signs. I don't want to mention now.
I see. Inshallah, another time. Sheikhna, well, a lot of questions on sex, but we answer these questions because we have to know the answers. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum. A man lived with a woman whom he inherited to marry, and also had marital relations with her without entering into a marriage contract, an aqd. Thereafter, he married her in the proper religious way. Is there cohabitation before the aqd considered marriage in the eyes of religious law? Does the subsequent aqd have retroactive effect? What will be the status of the children born before the aqd? Okay, so here, Sheikhna, there's a couple of questions here. Let's start with the first one. Cohabitation, I'm assuming that means living together before being married. Acceptable in Islam or not?
Without aqd, they can't. They have to have nikah aqd.
Okay.
Anyhow.
Does the subsequent aqd have retro effect? Okay, so I don't understand this properly, but I'm assuming it means that once you have performed the aqd, does it actually affect what the relations you had before or not? So, for example, if I'm having marital relations with this lady and I haven't married her, now that I've done the aqd, does it kind of erase what me and her did before?
What Ayatollah Sistani mentions that they must repent from what they did, especially the woman, from what they did before they do the aqd of marriage. So they repent to Allah Azza wa Jal, tawbah ila Allah Azza wa Jal, and then they do the aqd and they get married. Of course, the previous relationship was, of course, haram.
And the final question was in regards to any children that were conceived before the aqd. What is their status?
This is the problem. It was done without the aqd. They're out of wedlock.
Sheikhna, question from WhatsApp. Are we allowed to engage in phone sex while fasting? Does it require repentance or expiation? First of all, Sheikhna, there's two parts to this. Whether ejaculation happened or not. Secondly, speaking to someone who you're not married to in that manner over the phone, especially when you're fasting, does it make your fast invalid, or is it something that you could say is inappropriate for your salah?
In
Or salah, so
overall,
your fast.
intercourse while fasting is not permissible, and it will break your fast. And if I'm not forgetting, there might be also
Kafara.
Kafara.
Yeah,
yeah.
if it's
Kafara.
deliberate, if there's
Deliberate,
deliberate,
exactly,
then
yes.
it's a big one.
Yes, and they have to make it up later as well, that day.
Yes.
على كل حال.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, question from the YouTube, and that is, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. We recently married, but after some time, my father and mother are not happy with me. And also, they both, my parents, do not like each other, and I'm very frustrated. Please guide me. Sheikhna, could you give any advice to this brother or sister? I mean, we're not marriage counselors or family counselors, but is there anything you could say or any dua that they can recite in order to make a family or the household a bit more peaceful and a bit more happy, let's say?
I mean, initially they have to make sure that they perform all the wajibat. They don't miss any salah, they don't miss any wajib. And to refrain from the muharramat and eating haram as well. And the second stage is to stick to the ad'iyah and ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. They can recite ziyarat Ashura every day, Hadith al-Kisa every day, if they can. That will repel and remove all these ala kulli hal, difficulties and calamities from this family, inshallah.
Okay, question from YouTube, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. Is having intercourse over the phone with a marital partner from Far Permissible? So I'm assuming the husband or the wife would be on the phone to one another, but they will be pleasuring themselves while talking to one another. Now, as far as I know from Sharia, this is totally forbidden. Not the actual conversation, but the part of pleasuring yourself, because it's constituted as masturbation. So, Sheikhna, masturbation over the phone, but you're talking with your wife or your husband, is this acceptable in Islam or not?
If they both use their own hands and body parts to ala kulli hal, pleasure themselves, it's not allowed. It has to be either side, if they are close to each other, then they can do so, but not from far away.
Ahsant, totally forbidden. Sheikhna, a question from WhatsApp. Is the McDonald's chicken meat in the UK halal or haram? I can answer that for you, Sheikhna.
You have to ask the experts.
I'll break it down for you, Sheikhna, because I used to work in the food industry and I know supplies and so forth. I can confirm that yes, the chicken, well, back when I was working in the industry, which was 2011 to 2015, the chicken that McDonald's used to get was halal because it was from Thailand, and it used to say on the box as well, halal. However, they used to mix the oils. They fried the chicken in the same one, they fried the beef, they fried the bacon and so forth. And therefore there was cross-contamination of najasa, and it was totally forbidden to eat. Some may even argue that you can't even eat the fish from McDonald's because there's cross-contamination and so forth. But my advice to the viewers is that please inquire, ask questions from these restaurants or these big chains that you like to go and eat at. They are entitled to tell you where the meat comes from and whether it is halal or kosher or so forth. Furthermore, you need to inquire in regards to cross-contamination, because if your meat is being mixed with non-halal meat, for example, they use the same saucepan or spoon or fryer as other meats and so forth, there will be cross-contamination, there will be najasa being spread, and that food will be considered haram. If there is, Sheikhna, what about if there's a certificate, and like if there's a restaurant I go to and they say yes, the chicken is halal, the beef, the lamb is halal, I've got a certificate to prove that it's from a halal butcher and so forth, but the person or the business is not owned by a Muslim, are we allowed to eat in such a place?
If you trust them and you know that the suppliers are Muslims, for example, it's been brought from halal butchery or slaughterhouse, there's no issue with it. If you trust them, of course. Otherwise, you have to investigate and find out.
Speaking about food, Sheikhna, is it permissible to eat foods prepared by Christians and Jews?
If you haven't seen by yourself that they haven't touched them with their wet hands and moist, let's say they prepare, I don't know, hummus and falafel and so forth, you haven't seen that they've touched it with their own hands, wet hands, then it's fine, you can eat. But of course, you can't eat the meat and chicken because of not being halal. unless you sure that they bring from the halal source.
Yes.
You trust them.
Sheikh, I've got a nice paragraph here. Bismillah. There is a woman who is complaining about her husband falling short with her, and she says that he has not physically satisfied her for 1 year and 6 months, and that he does not give her the right to intimacy. This is despite the fact that if he called her, she would not refuse, but he is the one who does not call her to that. What is the ruling on that? What should she do? Is it permissible for her to ask for divorce because he refuses to be intimate with her and says that she is forsaking him, but that is not the case? So unfortunately here, a wife is not being given her rights in terms of intimacy from her husband. Though the husband may say this or say that, the person here has said that if the husband was to initiate, she would definitely agree. This situation has been 1 year and 6 months, Sheikhna. From what I know and what we've studied in Hawza and so forth, that is grounds for a divorce because she's not been given her right. Am I correct in thinking that?
So she's ignoring to offer.
No, he is ignoring to offer to the wife. If the husband was to offer to the wife, she would accept and she would be intimate with the husband. But the husband is keeping away from the wife. It's been 1 year, 6 months.
I mean, he can't keep away from her for more than 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
One of the rights of the husband, of course, to be offered the intercourse and to be able to maintain the woman, the wife. And it's wajib on him to على كل حال offer. على كل حال, he can't just ignore and neglect his wife for such a long time. 4 months is maximum.
Yeah.
Needs to be offered. Yeah.
Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
I work at an exchange office, but they also make me sell lottery. Is it permitted to sell lottery in this case? I'm assuming it's lottery tickets, and scratch cards and so forth.
Well, if it's a games of chance, it's not allowed, of course. It's haram to sell gambling tickets and instruments and cards and so forth.
I see. Would I be correct in thinking that the salary would be halal because the salary is not directly coming from gambling, it's coming from foreign exchange, selling currency and so forth?
على كل حال, this act is haram. The act of selling cards or gambling tools or and so forth. So it's not allowed.
Question from YouTube. What about eating from restaurants that are owned by Indians or food that is sent by our neighbors who is Indian? I'm assuming this person is saying that they are Hindu Indian, not Muslim Indian. But let's say a restaurant that are owned by Hindus. Hindus own a lot of vegetarian restaurants. So there's no need for to inquire about halal meat or so forth. Are we allowed to eat from their restaurants or so forth? If I have next door neighbors who are Hindu, and they send food around Diwali or for Eid maybe or whenever, are we allowed to accept and are we allowed to eat this food?
Again, are you certain that they have touched this food with their moist and wet hands? Otherwise, everything is pure and tahir, unless you're certain it's najis and impure.
Ahsant. Right, I've got more questions here, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum, this one's from YouTube. Please, Sheikh, can you pray in the midst of Sunnis without turba to avoid questioning? Really good question there, Sheikhna. Let's say I'm at university, there's a prayer room, and it's Friday, there's Jummah prayer, so there's loads of other madhabs and our Sunni brothers there together praying. Am I allowed to pray with them? Let's say, it's a situation where I want to perform taqiyya, not as if my life is in danger, but they're going to start asking questions, I may get hassled a little bit. Can I fold my arms and pray like that? Or should I continue with a turba, hands by my sides, and pray the proper Salah, the Shia way?
No, you must have the turba there, and there's no taqiyya in the situation unless the one's life is in danger. The life, the blood of the individual. This is not a taqiyya, you can just put the turba and pray. There's no issue with it.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
This one I think is from the WhatsApp. I travelled a day in the month of Ramadan, and during the year I was unable to perform the qadha fast. What is the kafara of delaying the qadha fast?
Did he do the perform the qada on that year?
No, the year's gone.
I mean, there is a kafara of fidya, fidya of feeding an individual for each day in which he missed, he delayed the siyam. There is a fidya to be paid على كل حال for delaying and not. I'm not sure if it's. I mean, if this individual was pregnant, for example, or ill على كل حال, there's a special hukum for them.
I see. Okay, 1 second. I'm just getting some more questions coming in. Here we go. Sheikhna, there is one who raises his voice loudly in his prayers and doing congregational prayers. What is the ruling of his coming to the mosque when he disturbs others, and that the Imam and the followers have advised him against this?
If this leads to nuisance and disturbance of others, like the Imam and the Jama'ah who are praying behind the Imam, then it is not permissible. They have to speak to him, try to offer him a room to pray inside that room, for example, and somehow to guide him, to advise him to avoid such act.
Sheikh, a question in from the WhatsApp, and that is, if there's a Jama'ah prayer going on, am I allowed to pray farada with that Jama'ah?
It's better to, to pray somewhere else in that mosque. Let's say in a separate room, for example, or upstairs. That doesn't breaches the sanctity of the Jama'ah. Some people might come and say, well, he's praying alone because the Imam is not adil, for example. That's what some people might think. So it's better to avoid being in that place.
Okay, question from WhatsApp. Assalamu alaikum. I want to make a little inquiry, please. Kindly inform me with the correct info. I have heard that you are not supposed to have marital relations on Tuesday, and there is something that comes that night which then curses all those who are doing it, and they suffer somehow later. Please reply. Sheikhna, we are aware that there are certain nights where you should not go to your spouse for intimate relations and so forth. And there are other times where it is mustahab to do so, and so forth. Tuesday night, I've heard nothing like this. What about you, Sheikhna? Not approaching your wife or your husband on a Tuesday evening, Tuesday night?
From what we have in narrations, that avoid the intercourse when the moon passes through the scorpion, as you know, qamar fil aqrab, they call it in Arabic, or on the first day of the month, the middle day of the month. Of course, this is the Arabic Islamic calendar, and the last day of the month. So awwal, wasat wa akhir. There are some. Of course, these are discouraged, in other words, makruhat. It's not wajib to avoid, but it's better for the one to avoid. There are days in which in the month one should avoid, but it's not wajib, but it's of course better for one's perfection to avoid these makruhat.
Shaykh, we're going to play a short video now for our viewers on how you can send in your questions here to Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of scholars.
Is it permissible to plant trees by or
over
over
Islam
the
establish
graves?
based on peace and
Is it
non-violence?
permissible to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim countries?
Is there an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. There, brothers and sisters, if you have any question that you'd like to ask, and it can be on any topic whatsoever. Today we've been talking about so many different topics, talking about Zinna, we've been talking about prayer, we've been talking about inheritance and so forth. Any question that you have, send it in via the WhatsApp, the email address. If you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook Live, put your questions in the comment section. Inshallah, the technical team will forward it to me, and me and Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your questions. If we haven't answered your question, we do apologize. And inshallah, we'll be back on Wednesday, 6:30 on Imam Hussein TV 3, and we will answer your question then. If there's a question you want in regards to a certain marja's opinion, please put the name of the marja down. We do have contacts with the official offices and the official representatives of all the maraja, alhamdulillah, and we will get you your answer, inshallah. Sheikhna, just a couple more questions left, and that is, my question is, how soon after having intimate relations should a bath be taken? We have heard that every time you do before having a bath, like walk or cook, is haram. God bless you for your services. Sheikhna, from what I've researched and what I've known, you should have purified yourself as soon as you become najis. And for those people who want to, be intimate more than once during the night and so forth, they should actually go perform ghusl and then go back to their spouses and be intimate. And then if they then go do ghusl again and then come back.
I mean, the sooner the better, of course, but they shouldn't rush. The sooner the better.
Ahsant. Sheikhna, can someone call him a Sayyid if his mother is a Sayyida but his father is not? So, to be a Sayyid, meaning having the lineage of Bani Hashim and so forth, can that be inherited from the mother's side, or is it that the father must be a Sayyid in order for you to use that title as a Sayyid?
No, it should be from the father's side. So if the mother was a Sayyida, or Alawiyya as in Arabic we say, then he becomes, or she, they call him Mirza. Mirza means the one whose mother is Alawiyya or Sayyida, and not the father. So they can call him Mirza.
Last question, Sheikhna. If someone masturbated and feels like ejaculating but nothing comes out, does he still have to do ghusl?
The ghusl becomes wajib when there is a ejaculation basically.
Of the sperm, yes.
Otherwise,
no, there's no.
But of course, the one should avoid such act because it's a ground or a foundation or a introduction to the act of haram. So they shouldn't do this. You
shouldn't get near it. Hassan, thank you very much, Sheikhna. Thank you to all the viewers for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. If we didn't answer your question, we do apologize. Inshallah, we'll answer your question on Wednesday's episode, 6:30 here on Imam Hussein TV 3. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please send it via the WhatsApp or the email address ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv, and inshallah we'll be able to discuss and answer all of your questions. Until Wednesday, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
We question our daily position, seeking answers and definitions. Get the queries off your chest with Ahkam SOS.
Whilst this winter many of you will be enjoying the festive season, Afghanistan is going through a crisis. Every winter the weather will reach temperatures as low as -18 degrees Celsius. With little finances and homes not adequate enough to keep the heat in, many families struggle during this season. The elderly are vulnerable and physically challenged to fight the cold during these days and nights. Young children must walk through snow and ice in order to get to school and return to a chilly and bitter cold home. Imam Hussein Development and Relief Foundation are determined to help. We will be providing households with coal to burn throughout the winter. $150 is all we need. $150 will be enough to provide heat and warmth for one household for the whole of winter. That's $150 for 4 months. You can donate via PayPal, bank transfer, or visit us at www.ihdrf.org to make a donation. Our Imams tell us the best of you are those who help those who are desperate. Help us spread the warmth. Thank you.
The Misbah Food Card Initiative is one like no other. A new, effective and efficient way to combat hunger. Underprivileged families register with Imam Hussein Relief and Development Foundation and receive a Misbah Food Card. They act just like debit cards. These cards will have $20 or $40 on them for families to purchase household goods. Rather than queuing outside a charity or food bank waiting to receive goods, Misbah